And welcome to Thrift Shop Biography. This one is about Andrew Ridgeley. Thank you for listening.
Hello.
Hello.
So this week we've been reading the autobiography of Andrew Ridgeley. And for those of you who might not know who Andrew Ridgeley is, he's the one in Wham who isn't George Michael. So tell me, like we do at the beginning of all of these podcasts, before you read the book, what was your opinion of Andrew Ridgeley, if you had one?
Really pretty. I thought he was the pretty one. I always did when I was a kid. Oh, I'm an 80s kid. So absolutely loved Wham.
I love Wham.
Yeah, loved them. And so generally he's the one that wasn't George.
Yeah.
Well, he's the one that didn't go and form a solo career. And so you know less about him. And I vaguely thought that I heard that he retired to Cornwall and was a surfer.
Yes. I'm pretty much have the same opinion of him as you. Yeah. He's just someone who was in Wham and then he kind of dropped off the face of the planet.
As if he didn't care about music.
Yeah. So the book, I'm quite frustrated by this book. How do you feel?
Yeah. Let's just point this out. We have banned ourselves from talking about it outside until now, until you press record, because we haven't actually discussed it. I'm livid.
Are you?
I got more and more annoyed with it.
For what reason?
For firstly, not almost telling us any stories.
Yeah, I know.
You can't write an autobiography and just write the facts that you can find on Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Secondly, the repetition.
Okay.
Almost from page to page, thinking of another way of saying the thing he said on the page before, which is another way of saying repetition.
Yeah.
Literally, that's an example of it.
I just think it's such a missed opportunity. I feel cheated. Andrew Ridgeley, everything he must know, the life he must have lived, I don't really feel it's in the book.
No.
I almost feel like he got offered... I always felt he's very loyal to George, right? Like really good friends. And I almost feel like he had a gun to his head to write this book and he gave them the bare minimum.
Yeah.
And I think the publishers accepted the bare minimum they could get away with to publish.
Yeah.
There's nothing in it.
It brings up all those questions of what's he trying to achieve here?
Yeah. What was the point of writing the book?
What's the point? And one of the main points, which is endlessly repeated in almost the same words, they were really good friends. It was his best friend. It was his soulmate. They were such good friends. They were amazing friends. They had this bond and this spirits.
In all fairness, the book is called Andrew Ridgeley, Wham, George and Me.
Yeah.
So it's obviously going to be as much about George as it is himself.
But you know what? You only have to say it once. They were good friends. You don't have to say it every third page. She's like, who are you trying to convince here? What are you literally trying to sell this on us? We know you were great friends. You were at school. You formed a band. You had the best times.
Yeah. You
don't have to keep drilling that point in. It makes you wonder, though. It makes you question the motive.
I felt like I learnt nothing that I didn't know from reading smash hits in the 1980s.
Yeah, well, we'd have learned more from that because they'd have said more.
Yeah. Having said that, I get that Andrew Ridgeley actually is a really nice bloke from reading this book. I do. And I actually think his reticence to say too much is through a loyalty to George Michael. Yeah. But that's not... Don't write a book then.
Yeah, I know.
Because I feel cheated. I feel shortchanged. Yeah. Even though I got it from a thrift shop.
Yeah, I know. It cost a quid. It's your time. It's your time.
Well, it's a short time.
It is a short time.
Book.
It's absolutely packed with empty space and pictures. And even at the end, there's about 6 blank pages just to prove that there really is nothing there.
So, let's start by saying where these two very good friends, where they met.
Yes. By the way, I did enjoy reading it.
You did?
Saying all that, I enjoyed reading it.
I enjoyed reading it because I loved Wham, still do. Yeah. So it's no hardship to read about them. And also, you can go onto YouTube and every time they mention a video or something, you watch and the music's great.
I did exactly that too. I re-listened to the albums. Yeah. Oh my God, I love these tunes.
So perhaps that if anybody listening is going to read this book, punctuate it by listening to the music and watching the videos on YouTube, and then it's just it's a joy.
It needs padding out. And you can actually watch those early interviews and stuff. For example, we've gone on a tangent again, but for example, I saw an interview with George Michael. I think he was on Graham Norton, obviously years later, and his book had come out, Bear, which was
Right,
his autobiography.
yeah.
A couple of years before, and Graham Norton says, this book came out before you came out, and George Michael goes, oh, very good. But actually that means that's not worth reading either. To a point.
Yeah, no, I want to read it.
Yeah, because I still want to read about where all the music came from and the touring stories, if he writes them. But it's not going to mention any of the truth of his feelings. And
I think it'll be interesting to read it knowing that he couldn't say what he really wants to say. You need to do that deep text analysis again, you see, read between the lines.
But I don't want to be lied to.
Well, then don't
knowingly lied to. Knowingly lied to. So I feel like an idiot.
Don't have icons in the closet then. You're being lied to right now by other people that you love in the public eye.
It's true. Well,
all those footballers that you're madly in love with.
Have we met? I can't even name one. No, that's one thing you can't say about that book. He's not lying to us because he's just omitting.
No. Yes, he's just not saying
he's just not saying it.
Yeah.
So at least you know that's probably the truth.
Again, he doesn't even, I know it comes later, but he doesn't really talk about George's sexuality or anything like that. And I think it's because he doesn't feel like it's his place to
Quite
say
possibly.
it.
But he also says they never used to talk about it. He says it quite a lot of times. Says, I now realise looking back that his sexuality was a problem and that was causing him a lot of anxiety. But at the time, I was 19... I was going out with women and having a great time. He was doing his thing, and we never talked about it.
I think that's from George being repressed and closeted.
Yeah.
I think Andrew would have been so cool about it and would have talked about it. Yeah, I think it's a shame because they are such good friends.
It is a cliche that blokes don't talk as much, though.
Yeah, but I think that kind of not talking about it came from George rather than Andrew, I feel.
Yeah.
Because it's difficult, they were talking about, the early 1980s, and he was in the public eye. There were very few out gay people, especially who were heartthrobs to largely young women.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it was difficult.
And then you're in the 80s, so you're in AIDS period, which does get mentioned just once.
Yeah.
So it was difficult. He said he worried about him, but... It's even more reason to keep it under cover, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure, definitely.
Because it was a really difficult time to be gay.
So they met at school.
Yeah.
In Bushy.
Yep.
So what age were they, like 11?
Yeah, that sort of age.
And George is new to the school, and Andrew gets assigned to look after him and show him around.
Yeah.
And Andrew likes sports, and he tries to connect through sports. George doesn't have any interest in football or anything whatsoever, but they bond over music.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's how they hit it off.
Yeah.
And George has a fantastic record collection, and Andrew goes around his house, and he has everything from like Stevie Wonder to Led Zeppelin. I was surprised at some of the Led Zeppelin. George being such a big fan, then Andrew being such a big fan of Led Zeppelin.
To the point where he fell apart when he meets Jimmy
that's hilarious. I loved that bit. So Andrew Ridgeley is like a massive fan of Led Zeppelin, and then one day at a Wham concert, unbeknownst to him, Jimmy Page's teenage daughter is a massive Wham fan, and the next thing he knows, Jimmy Page is knocking on his dressing room door.
Extremely unlikely he'd have done that if he hadn't had a teenage daughter.
But,
oh my God, Andrew Ridgeley's guitar playing. It's amazing.
So they had real eclectic music tastes, and they form a band in their teenagers, which I didn't know this.
Ah, didn't you?
That they had like a 4-5 piece band that were gigging.
Yeah, they didn't do many gigs though.
They supported the Vibrators.
Oh yeah, but wasn't that their only gig? And after that gig, everyone left.
Yeah.
Yeah, or as in not the audience, but the band all left the band after their first gig. Yeah.
But what were they? Like a jazz, funk, soul, bit of everything
covers,
band?
Yeah.
Covers, right.
Yeah.
So they all peeled away until it was just George Michael and Andrew Ridgeley.
Pretty much, yeah.
I find it surprising that they decided to go ahead as a duo.
Yeah.
Because it's quite unusual, isn't it?
Didn't they replace a drummer? They had a drummer. They kept replacing, because they said they were really frustrated with the style of that drummer.
Right, yeah.
And then they switched someone in. So I think they did have the odd extra person. Mm-hmm. It was very much the two of them writing songs.
But Andrew was kind of the instigator in getting the band together and then going forward with Wham. That really surprised me.
Yeah,
We've
really
been
was.
conditioned to think George was Wham.
Yes.
Actually, those early days,
Was Andrew
Andrew was the one who really got it all going.
It started to dawn on me that Andrew was good looking. He knew it. He was vibrant, confident, everything George wasn't. But they looked really similar because they had similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
So he was Greek background, George Michael, but Andrew Ridgeley's dad was Egyptian
I was going to say
Yemeni of origin.
Yes.
And both of them, these brown men, married white women and made these beautiful boys.
Yeah.
So they kind of look like they should be brothers. They look really like they should be together.
But Andrew was certainly more confident in the way he looked and stuff.
Yeah,
whereas
exactly.
George was a bit chubby and had that curly hair that he hadn't quite tamed yet. So he was way shyer than Andrew Ridgeley. Andrew Ridgeley was the person making it happen.
Yeah. This is what I mean. They look similar. They ended up being two people who seemed exactly the same, and then one rose above. And it's almost like that one morphed into the other. It's almost like George got his confidence, got his style.
Well, you're
Andrew.
saying he took all of the best bits of Andrew and
because
cast
there's something
them aside.
where it says that he's modelled himself on a friend, and Andrew said he never sort of asked him who that friend is, but he created a persona, changed his name, which Andrew Ridgeley's dad had changed his name.
Yes.
And he created a persona that's based on a friend, a good friend of probably Andrew, because it was his only friend, and then became him, and then kind of rose up, and then dropped Andrew down and said, I don't want you being part of creating the music now, I don't want you, and rose up and left him sort of without any confidence.
So what you're saying is that he's a life force sucker.
Not on purpose.
But it's interesting because obviously George Michael was not his real name. It's Georgios Paniotou.
Yes.
And then he kind of, like you say, he took bits of Andrew and then became George Michael, which in turn became like Freddie Mercury. It wasn't called Freddie Mercury Out on John, it's not called Out on John. It's his persona that he got the confidence from to go on and be this world-conquering pop star, which he would not, and George Michael admits this, he would not have done it or got there without Andrew Ridgeley.
Yeah, that's how the whole book starts, isn't it?
Yeah.
Then the last concert ever, and he hugs him and he says, I couldn't have done this without you.
Yeah. And I'm really pleased that he knows that.
Yeah, but on the other hand, that sounds like I couldn't have done this without you, as in I've done something and you've enabled it. You know what I mean?
Whereas at that point, it's also Andrew's equal achievement.
Should have, when they were still in Wham, been we did it.
Yeah.
Not I couldn't have done it without you.
I never thought of that. Yeah,
it's imbalanced, isn't it?
That's because George knows that's their last concert. He knows he's off.
Yeah, and Andrew Ridgeley says over and over and over again that he was the talent. George was the talent, and he was in awe of him.
This book made me angry for a number of reasons. Another one was I couldn't quite work out if Andrew was selling himself short, or whether, because he kept saying things like, "George is a talent. I never wanted to be in it for the long game anyway."
This is what, and then you feel that he's a bit bitter as well, and he's trying to kid.
I didn't really even get that he was bitter. I just kind of thought this book is written by a 55-year-old man, is he now?
Who's long since given it up.
So like the last time he was in Wham was probably like 23, 24, 25 tops. I wondered if it was the older, wiser man, knowing everything that happened, kind of thought it's better that I did get out when I did.
But how did he actually feel at the time?
I would love to have read a book by Andrew Ridgeley at the age of 25.
Yes, me too. Because it does seem to be written with hindsight, which is kind of the only way you can. Yeah. Except you just want them to beam themselves to how they really felt.
And I feel like he's made his peace with the situation now as a 55. How he's probably 60, is he?
Good point.
Don't know. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He still looks really good.
Yeah, they're about 60.
Yeah, 55, 60. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, about that, yeah.
You know, he's old.
Yes, obviously ancient, yes.
He's got grey hair now. So.
He hasn't got much hair, has he? Oh my God, how much does he look like his dad?
Oh yeah, a spit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, hang on. So they're in this band called The Executive, and then they're gigging, the others fall away, and now it's the two of them. and they start writing and recording as Wham,
Yeah.
right? And then it's Andrew who is taking the tapes and going out and knocking on doors and basically hassling a man in the pub. Who, this is another thing, like Rod Stewart, that we've read, Mariah Carey, all the other people we've read, they're hugely talented, but there does seem to be a case of right place, right time, right important person also in that place at that time.
Yeah.
Like a really important A&R guy is drinking in Andrew's local pub.
Yeah,
And he just hassles him with the tape.
Yeah.
This is a guy who has got, I think his name's Mark Dean, who is responsible for signing Soft Cell and stuff, who at that time, 1981, had the biggest selling single of the year.
Yeah.
That guy happened to be drinking in the pub that Andrew was drinking in.
Yeah.
And so he was there for him to give the demo tape to and then constantly hassle about it.
They're in outer London. I mean...
Yeah, I know, but
it's still a game of chance, luck and chance and hard work, isn't it? All the factors have to come together.
Definitely,
Yeah.
and they certainly did. And I was really surprised then when, like, the next page of the book, Mark Dean, the A&R guy, is like, well, I'm starting up my own label, or come in, we'll give you like a singles deal. It's just like, right, it just sounds so easy.
Yeah. See, somebody like Mariah, I think her sheer talent would have found a way up.
Yeah.
It just because it just would. Whereas they didn't have sheer talent that would have eventually because people gave them a chance here and a chance there. They're obviously good-looking young lads with a lot of energy, but they honed their craft. It took them ages to get good songs. They're obviously passing those tapes around. They weren't very good. For like at least the first two lots. Mm-hmm. It was only when somebody finally invested in them, the third time I think, got them in the studio with proper musicians and everything.
Those first Wham songs are brilliant.
Then they made those songs, and then you start to realise George is a genius, but at songwriting, it could have easily just...
I was really surprised. I hope I'm not jumping too far ahead yet.
Yeah.
To find out that Andrew Ridgeley co-wrote Careless Whisper.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
No.
I heard, right, that this is another, I guess, pop urban legend, which can get misconstrued. And I think Andrew references it in the book. And I heard that George gave Andrew a co-writing credit on Last Christmas.
That.
So that Andrew would never have to work again. Well, actually, it sounds like Andrew says in the book, people thought that George gave me a co-writing credit on Careless Whisper.
Yes.
But actually,
I
did
co-wrote
write it.
Yeah. But also, it doesn't mention that about Last Christmas. It says they gave it all to charity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that pop urban legend, which clearly was just something that somebody made up. Because it doesn't matter if he had a co-writer.
Careless Whisper. Yeah. He might have co-written it, but it sounds like George went alone to America to work at Moseley Shoals on it and came back after 11 saxophones and it hadn't worked or whatever. Sounds like it was him who had taken it to where he got it and had worked on it endlessly, and Andrew hadn't done anything on it.
Yeah, no, I get that, but he wrote it, he helped writing it, and I think that's fair enough. You either are involved in writing a song or you're not,
that's true.
And he certainly was.
Yeah.
Like George Michael saying to Andrew Ridgeley, I couldn't have done it without you. Well, then he had input in Careless Whisper as well. So in a way, Careless Whisper would not be the song it was had it not started.
Yeah,
in a place with Andrew Ridgeley's input.
Because producer is a whole different job, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is what that all is. But it's then like George finding eventually the perfect saxophone, which makes it. But then him then deciding that he was going to do it on his own. He was going to release it in the middle of Wham. Release that on his own, not as a Wham song.
Yeah,
is odd. But because George Michael's just leaping around with the guitar in the background...
Andrew Ridgeley.
Sorry, yes, Andrew Ridgeley leaping around the background. It's inappropriate. He can't. What's he supposed to do? Wander in the background?
Do you know what he would have done in 1983?
What?
He would have mimed the saxophone, and then they would have got in a huge amount of trouble.
Oh my God!
By the Musicians' Union.
So, so there wasn't really a space for him in the video, in the concept. But it's still strange that he... in the middle of that.
Yeah, he released it as George Michael. Although in America, it was released as Wham featuring George Michael. Yeah. Yeah,
it's really odd. Anyway, I wrote this note to myself. Where is it? About Careless Whisper. It says, it mentions all of it. Careless Whisper was finally released, and then Last Christmas came along, right? And it literally leaps over Careless Whisper. So I thought, He didn't even mention how well that did. So I Googled it. It says Careless Whisper was number 1 in 25 countries.
Wow.
And sold X million. I didn't write that down, but he didn't mention that. So you can't say that he's okay with it if he didn't mention its success. He leapt over it. It must have hurt.
What, not being Careless Whisper not being a Wham song after having... Do you know what? When Andrew in this book, like you say, the repetitive nature of it, kept saying, eventually George came to me and said, I'm just going to do the songwriting on my own now. And Andrew Ridgeley's like, okay, I'm fine with that. It's like, why would you be fine with that if you've written the big hits before? Then all of a sudden George Michael comes and says, I'm going to write the songs on my own now.
Well, I wrote down this quote as well. It said it was a decision which happened behind the scenes.
This is the
So it's already
stage,
decided.
Right. Because they had new management at this point, right? They obviously saw Wham, saw George at the front with that amazing voice, and probably did think, what's this guy doing jumping around in the back with a guitar?
Or maybe they watched their process in the studio and thought that he was holding him back. Because maybe he's going, what, let's try that. Whereas George had this whole vision in his head of what he was going to sound like at that point.
And, you know, historically, lead singers from bands have gone on and had massive solo careers. And I guess that the managers just kind of thought we can go the full distance with George and develop him to be a mature artist, where Wham's always going to be a teeny bop group. It's
like Harry Styles out of One Direction, isn't it?
Sort of.
Because only that One Direction is for kids. And they started when they were 16. As soon as they hit 20, they've got to go solo. It is. Yeah. And they were obviously thinking exactly the same.
Yeah. And they were right.
They were right. Yeah. They were, yeah. It's really harsh, though. You never get to read a biography of the underdog that gets pushed out.
Oh, well, here's something then. Read the interviews with the other members of One Direction now.
Yeah, but haven't they all got solo careers?
Not as like Harry Styles has.
But they tried.
The one, I don't know his name. The one that had a baby with Cheryl Cole. Yeah. Is his name... I think it could be Liam. I should know this.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Who I think he was the one who was expected to do well. He sold the worst out of all of them, and he's now playing little gigs in clubs, and people film him and put him on TikTok, and they all laugh at him because Harry Styles is like literally sold at Madison Square Garden 10 nights in a row, and this other guy is like playing seedy little clubs.
He should probably not do that. He'd probably be better off.
I can't tell you anything about the music because I don't listen to it, but I'm sure it's as good and
Niall,
as bad
he's
as
done
Harry.
well, hasn't he?
Well,
everyone's talking about Harry, aren't they?
It is all about Harry, and I'm not convinced by Harry. But anyway, this isn't a podcast. No,
but it's that sort of thing where
100%. I'm in total agreement.
But it's different in the way that they were all encouraged that they could all become successful alone, whereas Andrew was always just kind of this is going to end.
He did have a solo career,
but it didn't. The way he talks all along, it didn't seem like he was going to carry on, and then he did.
But the thing with the solo career shouldn't have been that surprising, because Andrew was also a singer in Wham. He did all the backing vocals. I didn't know that. I don't know why. He was just always... I mean, I was a pop fan at that moment in time. Yeah. And I think because they had the girl backing vocalist...
They did.
Perhaps you didn't notice as much, because George was such a male vocal presence. Yeah. Perhaps you didn't notice as much that Andrew actually did male
That's
backing
very
vocals.
true. And they'd say on the tours it was him that was really the singer, and that's why it's so exhausting for him. Yeah. Exhausting his voice. So I don't think they did that much.
Let's talk about Pepsi and Shirlie and Dee C
Shall we?
Lee. Yeah. That first incarnation of Wham, where it's Dee C Lee and Shirlie and it's Young Guns, where they do that routine on Top of the Pops, and it's the four of them actually not on a stage, on the floor with the... I love all that.
It's so exciting.
Yeah, it really was. It still is.
That's the one where they got Top of the Pops out of nowhere. They weren't even in the top 40, but someone dropped out.
Someone dropped out.
They leapt in.
Same thing happened to Culture Club, you know.
That's absolutely
Which I think is kind of in the same year.
I feel like it was Adamant.
I feel like it was Shakin' Stevens.
Oh my God.
Well, maybe it was one for one and one for the other.
Well, you need to double check the pop facts. And they never found out who dropped out, they said.
Right, no, they didn't.
So we don't have to worry
about that. I find that shows you how big Top of the Pops was.
Yeah, it really was.
That actually somebody can drop out. You can be like number 42, get on TV, and the next minute you're right up in the top 20.
Yeah.
But having said that, it was a particularly good song.
Yeah, which one was it?
Young Guns.
Young Guns, yeah. It wasn't Wham Rap. Oh, Wham Rap came and went.
Yeah, Wham Rap came
Guns,
first, did
they had
nothing.
to re-release it, didn't they?
Young Guns came, hit,
Yeah.
and then Wham Rap was re-released
yeah.
after the hit. The thing, like I just said about them dancing on the floor with the audience, that happened quite organically because Shirlie, one of the backing singers, was Andrew's girl. It was somebody they knew from school, right, in the year above them, and Andrew started going out with her.
Yeah.
And then he said, "Oh, come and dance with her," because they started doing PAs in nightclubs, and some of the nightclubs they went to didn't have stages, so they would end up doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, really.
Miming. He said that in those times they were always miming. If you can't mime that close to someone without them knowing you're miming, you're just dancers then, aren't you? It's ridiculous.
It's weird as well to think you're in a nightclub and not on a stage. How do they start that? You're just on the dance floor.
Yeah, because you can't see. Only the 10 people around you can see you.
And what I found amazing is it was Shirlie and another woman before Dee C Lee was drafted in, and this other woman just one day just kind of went, "Oh, I'm not into this. I'm just leaving." It's like, well, you could have
toured the world,
been part of Wham.
Could have been smash hits.
Yeah, she just didn't want to. She got fed up very, very quickly.
Yeah.
But also, there was a 1980s retrospective thing on TV a couple of years ago where the actual woman who sang on Young Guns, the session musician, that's an amazing female vocal. It's very sexy and all that chat in the middle.
Well, tell us, joke to take
it's great. But she, I think she only realised she was ousted from the performance when she saw her on Top of the Pops and saw this pretty blonde Shirlie mouthing her vocals.
I thought she was just hired. I thought she was just a vocalist who was hired in.
Yeah, she was. But come on, did she get first refusal at going on Top of the Pops?
No, because there's already actors playing her part, as it were.
No, that's disgraceful. Then you need to contact the musicians union.
She just came in for a little voiceover job. I remember hearing it. She said George knew exactly what he wanted. Was totally in command. She did the thing and off she went. She got paid fine. And then she heard herself all over the radio for the rest of her life.
Yeah.
But nobody knew it was her.
I know, but she could have been part of that fun. I think it's a real shame.
Legally. Well, what's wrong with Shirlie's voice? Well,
did they use her? They must have used her voice event. No, Pepsi and Shirlie had their own pop career, so she can sing.
That's true. So why didn't they just use her voice? Because they wanted this sultry voice. Because she probably go, "Oh, tell it Joe to take a hike."
Yeah, she was a proper cock.
Yeah, like I have no idea. She obviously going, "Well, tell us Joe to take a hike." So you just used somebody as a session musician. People turn up, play the trumpet, and leave, and find out it's Star Wars.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of the job.
Yeah.
She's got a cheek to whinge about it.
I'm not sure you could get away with it these days. Pump Up the Jam.
Yep.
That wasn't her.
Yeah, I know.
And she sued them,
right?
But
that's tending to be a whole person fronting a band.
No, she was featured artist on Technotronic.
Yeah.
I don't think it's pretending to be an artist. I think she was a session musician.
Yeah.
And then they got somebody else in to voice it. And she's like, that woman's using my voice, so she sued them.
Yeah, that's a lot bigger than just a little cameo as a voiceover thing, isn't it?
What, in Wham?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. It's the music industry, isn't it?
Well, she made it bloody known that it was her.
No, I saw her talk about it once.
I did too, but...
And if we weren't talking about it now, I bet nobody listening to this would even have a clue who she... I bet most people think Shirlie sung that.
Yeah, well, she certainly mimed it a lot.
Yeah. Why would you not think it was her?
Yeah.
Do you remember, just sorry to go on a complete tangent, do you remember Corona, who sung "This is a Rhythm of the Night"?
Yeah.
Not her voice.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And what's even more interesting about that is that she had about 3 songs afterwards.
Yeah.
None of them are her voice. 2 of them completely different singers. And if you watch the videos now on YouTube, it's the same woman miming as the same act, Corona.
Oh, right.
Completely different voices and different songs.
Wow. But that's the same as Boney M. That was just a bloke in Germany in his studio using a voice adapter thing.
Was it?
Yeah. Because that was a lot with dance music. People were making the studios, and then when they needed to go on Top of the Pops, they had to hire. They were like, "Oh, bloody hell, let's get..." Same as the village people.
They all knew They all knew. They were all in on it. What I'm saying
I
is this
suppose
woman
so.
who
So
sung...
we need to get an act together and
the woman who sung Young Guns was... I'm sure she would have gone on Top of the Pops had they asked her.
Well, what did she think she was doing a voiceover for?
She was singing a song.
Yeah.
I'm sure, I'm 100% certain, I mean, I am making this up, but I'm 100% certain when the Young Guns got to go on Top of the Pops, they did not phone that woman whose voice was on the song and said, we're doing Top of the Pops, do you want to come? She said, no, let the pretty blonde girlfriend do it.
They couldn't have her on there because the Wham was the four of them. They just used her voice, same as...
Okay, we're not going to disagree.
I don't think the real Careless Whisper saxophone player would have appeared in live gigs.
Oh.
Someone else would have played it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of different because he would at least been credited. Mind you, I don't know his name.
You know what I mean? It's the same way as you get in session people for recording and they're not necessarily the band or the live act. And I think that's accepted. And I think this woman just stuck her neck out and whinged about it a lot to make herself famous.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, she hasn't made herself.
No, because I couldn't name her.
I couldn't name her. Yeah, I know. It's brilliant. I just feel like she just deserves a bit of justice. As an artist yourself, how would you feel if somebody else took your work?
Well, people always do. They pay me to go and paint something, then that's somewhere.
And how does it make you feel?
Paid.
How would you feel
paid for a
if
daily
people
rate.
said, look at this amazing painting, Shirlie from Wham did it?
No, because I wouldn't have done the whole painting, see. I would have gone in and done a bit of the backdrop with everyone else who was paid to work on that. Because you know as a painter, you're not going to get credited for the finished piece of art. It's like that.
And that's the way it is.
And that's a wrap. Oh, Wham rap.
Anyway,
yes.
I feel like much of this podcast has gone over to the woman who sang on Young Guns.
Yes.
And it should be about Andrew.
Well, that's because we have to pad it out because he hasn't. This is the sort of facts you could put in there, you see.
I'd love
These
to know
are interesting things we happen to know about Wham.
Yeah.
So not in that
But
book.
not in that book.
Nothing is in that book.
I know it. I feel really let down by him.
All right, it grew to astound me more and more. Right, he'd gone on and on and on about how their absolute dream was to fill stadiums. Their dream since they were school boys and friends and best friends and soulmates. Right, if you'd missed that point. So then, here's a quote. We started the big tour with a brief whiz around the UK, including Wembley Arena on Christmas Eve and Boxing Day. Then we flew to Japan. I literally put the book down, looked around the room. I was like, what? This book has been all about, you've dreamt of doing an arena. And you said we had a quick whiz around the UK, including Wembley Arena on Christmas Day and Boxing Day. Then we flew to Japan. Then he starts talking about Japan.
Yeah.
You've built us up to this point. You've done 2 arena gigs and you haven't mentioned them at all.
Yeah.
How it feels, what was in the gig, what was the staging, what was the audience, anything about it. You haven't mentioned it and you've written an autobiography about it. And that was the pinnacle of their dreams. Yeah.
So really, he didn't deserve to be in Wham. I totally get. It seems like it just all passed him by.
But then you're not allowed to build us up to say we dreamt of this, and then just literally use the word whiz past it.
Yeah.
You can't.
I feel like he whizzed past his whole life and career in this book.
It really made me wonder because I've read rock and roll people's things who were absolutely hammered or even on heroin, and they can recall a lot more than this man.
But do you remember in Mariah Carey's book where she all of a sudden she got a record deal and then she didn't realise how famous, like 3 years later she had no idea how famous she was.
But she didn't tour. That's the difference. They dreamed of filling an arena. Then they did.
I wonder if they just work them so hard and they're going from studio to photo shoot to gig that actually it does become a blur and they don't remember it.
Oh, do you think the first arena when you walk out on that stage?
Yeah, no, he'd remember it.
That's what I mean. Most people haven't dreamt of arenas. They've just dreamt of the next gig and it's just got bigger and bigger. Whereas they dreamt of it. They aimed to it and then passed by telling how it felt. I just think if I was a publishers, I'd sit them down and go, no, you can't build up to that and then skip by describing it.
It's true, actually, because we were saying earlier how we don't know whether he just wanted the money and said as little as possible. He was loyal to George. So there's not a lot of George in this book. But actually, stuff like this, he could tell us about this.
Yeah, he could.
And he's chosen not to.
No. And then he says they went to New York and it was a dream for them to go to New York. And they went out to a club, but George fell asleep at a speaker and then some people invited us out somewhere else and we went. That's it. That's no detail.
Yeah.
There's nothing about it. What were they playing? You know, what
Does he say
music were
what
they dancing
clubs
to?
they
Did
go
they
to, or who
hear
he sees,
different
or-
music? Did they meet? Who did they? Come on.
Yeah.
You can't go to New York for the first time as two young lads and go out and not tell us about it.
I mean, do you think then that at the time it just didn't bother him that much? He was just like, okay, this is kind of cool, rather than he just wasn't overawed by it himself, like he doesn't want to tell us about it.
I don't know.
Do you think it's just a bit boring? I don't like using that word because I don't think he can possibly be boring. He was in Wham.
Yeah,
he can't be boring.
He can't be boring, or can you?
But maybe he's just a boring storyteller. But then the publishers should have flipping...
It's actually missing telling us, though. It's like I say, if you Wikipedia'd this, you could read the history of what happened when they did this. They went to New York. They did these arenas and this countries. It's almost a list. You've got to pad it out with stories around it, and he does a bit.
You know the stories that he chooses to tell, they're shit ones.
Yeah, they are.
Like embarrassing ones as well.
Like the last Christmas video, they all ran around drunk and
with a blow up,
their asses out.
Yeah, it's just like that's just
through the window.
He thinks that's funny.
The producer who was shagging his wife or something.
Yes,
the director.
That's one of his.
That stays in his mind.
Yes, he thought that was
best
hilarious.
Thing that ever happened. Yeah.
Oh my god!
And he doesn't have many of those stories either.
No, he doesn't.
So that's the most exciting.
And like
thing
when he's on
happened.
the yacht, when they're out somewhere, and like Joan Collins' yacht is over there, and the story that he tells is that George Michael shouted out something about "Where are your knickers?" I can't remember exactly. That's a story you're telling us about.
That's the whole story about your trip to Monaco.
George Michael shouted about Joan Collins' knickers.
Boat. Yeah, that's a highlight.
That's the story he's got for us.
That's it. That's it.
Oh my god!
It's bad.
It is. I hate to say it. It's bad. I'm not enlightened by it at all.
No.
And I wanted to be because I love Wham.
I know. And to be honest, like if he was anywhere near us now, I'd stop talking because I wouldn't want to upset him.
No, I'm the same.
Because he's nice.
He's so nice.
He doesn't deserve us to be mean to him.
Well, no. Do you know what? Let's just say, just write your next book a bit better.
well, just yeah.
What's interesting about this book is obviously from the age of like 25 he was a bit of a playboy and did his motor racing and stuff like that, but quite soon he decided to go and live the quiet life down in Cornwall in a farmhouse, and he really did do it and stick to it. He did not chase fame in any way.
No, he really didn't.
Never seen him on any of the celebrity reality shows.
No.
He just disappeared and lived a very nice life.
Farmhouse. He raised his partner's kid, obviously.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
Why does he want to write a book?
Yeah.
Because in a way it's a bit like getting the fame back. Publishing this book, you're putting your name back out there.
Yeah. But well, the timing is that George has died, and he obviously... See, I wondered whether it was a bit like Paul McCartney fighting for recognition with his writing credit stuff with John Lennon. I wondered whether he wanted to put it down officially that he was part of the core of Wham, in case he gets completely written out of history. Because when George died, it's the outpouring of love for him. He must... Because he did it, obviously, after George died, he might have felt like,
He didn't want to undermine George's legacy that he'd built up for himself. Me, actually, there was me. You know, because he was sort of forgotten in it a bit, maybe. Thinking about it now, and now we're talking about it, the book actually is written by somebody who wants and continues to want to get away from the fame.
Yeah.
He is giving us a bare minimum. He doesn't want... I think he doesn't want to get back into that world.
Then, because I've got a few theories. The other one is it's an absolute love letter to his best friend. He literally... the love of his life. It might have just been a way of dealing with a massive amount of grief. So I don't have any doubt that was the love of his life, or at least absolutely the friendship of his life. He says it.
100%.
Never had anything like it since.
What I want to know then, and I get it, George Michael was his best friend from the age of like 11.
Yeah.
What he never told us at any point is how he felt 10 years later when George Michael's one of the biggest singers in the world.
He completely skipped it. The whole
How
thing.
did he feel about that?
Yeah.
He doesn't say anything about it.
He says things. No, but on the journey there, he said how proud he felt like when he saw him singing at the Apollo with Stevie Wonder. He says he was in the audience just feeling massively proud of his friend and saying, now the whole world can see what I knew, which is that he's one of the best singers in our country.
Another thing is that they were constantly in touch the whole time.
Yeah.
I never knew that.
No, I've learned that by Googling articles and stuff. They visit each other. They said sometimes the Cornish residents heard a helicopter and knew it was George landing to see Andrew. And he also went over to America. And
it's weird because it's a book about him. The book is called Wham, George and Me. So it's about George. So he's allowed to talk about George. But what happens is actually when Wham finish in the book, he doesn't really talk about George anymore.
No.
And I want to know what it's like to be left behind to that extent.
Yeah, to watch your friend just go to stratospheric levels of success.
You know, what also really irked me is that I think he's talking about George singing at the Freddie Mercury tribute concert, which is like 1991. And literally the next sentence is, it was Christmas Day 2016.
Yeah.
I sent George a text to thank him for the hamper.
Yeah.
My phone rang. It was George's sister telling me he died.
Yeah.
It's like you've just gone from 1991 to 2006.
Yeah.
So 1 minute you're watching him be amazing on Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
And then he's dead.
Yeah.
This book is so short.
Yes.
Andrew, you could have told us what happened in 26 years in between
even in 2
there.
pages you could have just summarised the
So
time
much
in between.
happened. So much
My
happened to
friend
George
went
Michael.
this, went that. He does sort of skip over things like saying, even though he was trying to go solo and deal through his music with his actual personality, sexuality and all that, which he really does. Mm-hmm. Once you realise he's gay and all that trouble he went through, you re-listen to all of his solo work and realise it's all in there. But he does mention that how tormented he was having to keep his persona private, and
I think it's a difficult thing to do. I think when you've sold your soul to the devil and you're at that level of fame, I don't think you can have a private life. I think you should be able to. I think unfortunately you can't. And I think the people who try to,
they proved that. Yeah, they took it. They took his private life.
Yeah. I wonder though, the reason he doesn't talk about him between like 1990 until his death is because George obviously had some problematic episodes.
Well, that's exactly what I was.
And I think he's thinking, if I talk about some of it, I have to talk about all of it.
Yes.
And
that's
he just
what
doesn't
I mean.
want
That whole
to.
pull from the one persona to the public was unravelling him behind the scenes, and all sorts of bad stuff was happening.
Yeah.
And it's
tragic.
It's terrible and tragic. And yeah, I agree. It just, that's called Wham, George and Me. But,
Not after Wham.
Just out of good writing, there's got to be a better way of. It's not even a new chapter, I don't think,
No,
is it?
it's like the next
Yeah,
sentence.
there's got to be a better way of just weaving them together.
Yeah.
You know?
No, it's a disappointing book. But essentially, Andrew, this is your book. And if you didn't want to talk about George between 1990 and 2016, you could have told us a bit about yourself. Come on.
Yeah. Yeah, either.
Yeah.
Or even write why you don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Just something.
Yeah, I know. I feel it's a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of enjoy it because it's... No, right, here's something. He was very vocal in the book about feeling shortchanged with the final concert.
Yeah,
because George is like, we owe our fans one last concert. Yeah. And Andrew's like, we have fans all over the world.
Yeah,
we owe them a final tour.
And that would have been amazing.
And George was like, no, we're going to do one at Wembley.
Yes.
And I guess that's because George has already moved on at that point.
I get that. I really get that. It's very Michael Jackson, actually, because the Jacksons kept making him come back and do Jackson gigs, and he was already wanting to be Michael Jackson. So similar, because they were still doing old Jackson 5 stuff, and he's like, I am not this person anymore. Because if George Michael in his head is already writing Faith and Freedom and all those songs, and still going, young guns having some
Yeah.
fun. It's just not who you are.
Like he doesn't want to get on stage and sing Bad Boys
No.
again. I have to say, I think Bad Boys is a tune.
I absolutely love Bad Boys.
George Michael went off Bad Boys almost as soon as they recorded it. It's not
Yeah.
even on their greatest hits because he doesn't like it.
That's not fair to people who
No,
love that
it's
song.
not.
Yeah,
Listen to
because
the
that's
fans.
a cracking
It's
song.
brilliant.
Oh yeah, I'd like to bring this up. It's a bit of a tangent. He had the nerve to say, right,
Yeah.
that Wham Fantastic, their first album, he said, let's face it, there's 4 hits
Oh
and
my
the rest
God.
are fillers.
No, they're not. I
They are
remember
not fillers.
reading that
That's
myself.
the second album I ever owned.
Yeah.
And I loved every
single
second of
track,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Ray
you
of
can't
Sunshine.
take that from me and say they were
Yeah,
fillers.
yeah,
How dare you?
Yeah, no, I had the exact same emotion
But then,
when I read
so, yeah,
that.
so I googled it. I was like, right, I'm going to read it out. Bad Boys,
Amazing.
amazing. Ray of Sunshine.
Amazing. That should
That's
have been a
killer
single.
song. I still sing that if I'm in a good
Yeah.
mood.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you wake up in the morning with a bass line, a ray of sunshine.
Yes.
If you're someone who loves music, you really get that. Like, the bass line is the beginning of something.
Yeah.
And you can work from that. Even though I don't even write music or anything, I get that. How exciting.
It's
If you imagine if you
brilliant
wake
song.
up with a bass line.
It's a brilliant
Love
song.
it. It's so funky. Love Machine. I know that's a cover.
Yeah, it's a cover.
But it's a
a
cracking
good cover. Yeah.
Cracking cover. Wham Rap, obviously,
Yeah.
hit. Dub Tropicana, amazing.
Brilliant.
Nothing. It looks the same in the light.
It's
was-
okay. It's a bit laid back ballady.
That's the
but it's
only one
fine.
I don't love as much.
It's because you were young and it's
It was young and it's a bit
slowed
adult.
down. Yeah.
It was a bit adult
Yeah.
theme, and I was a bit
Yeah.
confused by it, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
Come
on. Brilliant.
That wasn't a hit.
No, it
That's-
wasn't a
that's an
single. It's a
amazing
brilliant
song.
track.
Yeah, and then Young Guns. So
Yeah.
fillers.
Yeah.
How dare you?
I know. I felt exactly the same.
You're joking. Those 2 albums are packed full of
That could have
brilliant
been a
songs.
greatest hits in itself. The whole, every
Yeah,
track.
yeah.
Yeah. But I tell you something else, Andrew Ridgeley, which this almost kind of said to me how seriously or how much a big deal of it was to him being a pop star.
Yeah.
The fact that he never got up and went to be part of Band Aid.
Oh my God. I wrote down that quote as well. Get this, right? And this is what I thought George Michael deserved to go on because he was dedicated. And Andrew originally was not dedicated. Like he
Yeah.
said, even when they said, we don't want you writing tunes, he could have gone and carried on writing his own if he was
Yes.
dedicated to
Yes.
music.
Yes.
Most people do.
Yeah.
So he really wasn't that bothered.
Yeah.
But he says, Band-Aid, like so many of the approaches that came into our management company, I dismissed the facts as being of little importance, right? It's that thing where you do everything that comes to you.
Yeah.
You don't, something comes in saying, please can you be in the studio? You go to the studio. You've got to do your job. Thus he said, oh, it's of little importance, can't be bothered with that. And he missed Band-Aid.
Do you think everybody else that was there, Boy George,
Yeah.
Paul Weller, Duran, Cool in the
Got
Gang,
the
Banana
same
Rama, they
facts,
all got the same
turned
facts
up.
and they all turned up.
Yeah.
For some reason, Andrew
Took it
Ridgeley saw that
seriously.
and just thought, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not a criticism of him because not everybody has to have the same burning, ambitious drive. He obviously didn't have that drive. Therefore, he went and became a surfer dude.
It's interesting because you're right, ambition is, I guess people have different levels of it, because in
Yeah.
the early days he certainly had ambition
Yeah.
to get the record deal
Yeah.
and to get a level of success.
Yeah.
But he says repeatedly in the book, oh, we kind of took it as far as we wanted to.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, well, why wouldn't you just want to see if you could take
Yeah,
it to the next
that's
level?
what you want to do for a job.
I think it's self-preservation because George basically ejected him at a certain point.
That's what I wonder. Are you just saying that now because
Like you
you've
say-
been in therapy for 25
Yeah,
years?
and like you say, George was his best friend, the love of his life, and he
Yeah.
wanted the best for him.
Yeah.
I bet it really fucking hurt, actually.
reckon
It was
did.
like a divorce.
There's little hints that it did
Yeah.
amongst them.
It's like you're kind of saying, you're not good enough for me now. I need to go
Yeah.
to the next level. I'm leaving you behind.
Yeah, and I don't even want you helping me write, even though they started out together as brothers.
When Andrew Ridgeley did his album, I think George Michael went and sung backing vocals on a track. It's not like they completely abandoned him.
Yeah, very true.
I don't know. I just felt like the whole book is Andrew saying, I was all right with it all the way along.
That's what I feel. It's a bit
what
of
I
a
wanted.
cry for help. It's
and
a bit
I
of a...
kind of thought you couldn't have been.
No.
You must have been devastated. Just please
Yes.
just say you were devastated.
Yes, I know. But I think it does. Now I've suddenly said therapy. It does smack of 25 years of therapy and who are you trying to kid? The repetition alone. I think I've already said that.
Yeah, we can be repetitive.
I've got to be repetitive because it's the nature of the book. Repetition alone makes you think, who are you trying to convince? What are you trying to sell on us here?
Yeah, and again, just to repeat myself, it's like the book of an older, wiser man who's made his peace with the situation.
Yeah.
I wanted to read the Andrew Ridgeley book that he wrote when he was 25.
Yeah. See? We're learning from the book. This is a repetitive comment on a repetitive book.
So, okay, you read the book. To wrap this podcast up, how do you feel about Andrew Ridgeley now?
Well, it's a little bit sad. Yeah, it's a little bit sad overall. I mean, he had an amazing time, but so early on, he was getting pushed out so early on. So he carried on being in Wham, knowing that he was a spare part. Yeah, even in the touring and stuff.
Mm-hmm. It's an interesting concept that there's a band called Wham who were massively famous. They were both the same age. One of them shot off to superstardom and mega fame around the world. The other one,
but self-destruction and misery.
This is
the
point,
of course.
Like the other one goes and lives quietly in a farmhouse.
Yeah, but is he happy because he got divorced in 2017?
Yeah, he's of course. When you get divorced, you're over the moon. What are you talking about? Have you seen his girlfriend now? She's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, but actually, he only met her this year or something. So
well, then he's really happy.
Maybe he didn't have 5 years on his own. Maybe he had 5 years out.
I just think it's an interesting comparison. That the one who we think gets everything that he wanted, the massive career, was ultimately unhappy and is dead now.
Very unhappy, yeah.
Whereas the one who didn't continue fame, went off and had a nice life, is still alive and still having a very nice life, you know?
Yeah.
Can't write a book, but...
Can't write a book?
No, I think fair play to the man,
You can't do everything, can you?
I kind of get it. He doesn't want the limelight.
Yeah.
Anymore, and you have to respect that.
Yeah,
you know?
There's loads of people who've done that down the line.
Like who?
I can't name them.
Name 5.
Well, that's the whole point. I've forgotten who they are.
They've done it very, very well.
Yaz. Yeah, no, Yaz was massive.
I saw
in
her
the
in
80s.
Spitalfields Market a couple of years ago.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Because I managed to find. I thought, what's happened to her?
She found Jesus.
To know. Yeah, I googled it, and she was on the internet. She'd lived in Spain for a long time because I guess she didn't want to be recognised. And she was only on this programme because it was a Christian programme. And she turned The Only Way Is Up into being about God.
Oh,
and
dear.
she kept closing her eyes when she was talking for lengthy periods of time. And I was like, I'm done with you now. You're done with us and it's mutual.
She was married to Jazz Summers, who was George's manager, and she was George's dresser.
What?
Before she became Yaz the pop star.
Links her and George Michael.
Oh, I've got a link between George Michael and Mariah Carey.
Do I know it? Pub quiz.
The guy who directed "Wake Me Up Before You Go" video directed "Vision of Love" video.
That's amazing. There's got to be loads, hasn't there? If he'd put enough stories in, the stories would be in there.
Yeah, that's the thing. We also want to hear about the other pop stars that were around at the time. Tell us a bit of fun and who you were shagging and the funny stories that happened. Oh, the only thing that... where was it? Where Paul Weller went up to him and told him off.
Oh, yeah.
For... I can't even remember what for now.
He told George off for being...
At Band-Aid.
Yes.
The Band-Aid recording, yeah.
For some political...
Because the first couple of Wham songs were really political about life on benefits and stuff, and then they started doing Club Tropicana, and then George Michael slagged off Norman.
Didn't Dee C Lee join Paul Weller?
Yeah.
Yeah.
She ditched Wham to go to Star Council. They're another great band.
Yes.
Yeah.
So there's a connection right there.
Dee C Lee's been in Wham and the Star Council.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Any more? Oh, yeah, well, I wrote another note. Bored Ridgeley.
Do you think that should be the title of the Bored Ridgeley?
Basically, you almost couldn't have had a more interesting life. And to make a book that's like a Wikipedia list, that's quite a challenge. It's quite an achievement in itself. But I still enjoyed it, but I was just getting angry, and now I'm repeating myself.
Yeah, we're repeating ourselves. Okay, we should just stop.
To summarise,
they were best friends. They were in Wham together, and then George died. That's basically the book.
Yeah.
Okay, see you next week.